Michael Joseph Jackson was an American singer, songwriter, and dancer. He is also known as the King of Pop. He released one of the best-selling albums in history. He died in 2009 at age 50 of a drug overdose just before launching a comeback tour. Michael Jackson was born on August 29, 1958, in Gary, Indiana. Katherine Jackson, Jackson's mother, was a housewife and a committed Jehovah's Witness. His father, Joseph Jackson, was a musician who gave up his artistic ambitions to work as a crane operator to support his family. Joseph encouraged his sons to succeed. He was also accused of being aggressive with them. Jackson was one of 10 children. 9 of his siblings, including Janet Jackson, LaToya Jackson, Rebby Jackson, Randy Jackson, Tito Jackson, Giovanni Jackson, Jermaine Jackson, and Marlon Jackson were all successful musicians. Brandon Jackson was supposedly Marlon's twin brother, born on March 12, 1957. In Gary, Indiana, Brandon died 8 to 24 hours after birth because the twins were several weeks premature. In the early 1960s, Joseph thought his sons had talent, so he formed a musical group known as the Jackson 5. At first, the Jackson family performers were Tito, Jermaine, and Jackie Jackson, Jackson's older brothers. Jackson joined his siblings when he was 5 years old and quickly rose to fame as the group's main vocalist. He impressed listeners with his ability to communicate complicated emotions, displaying incredible variety and depth for such a young artist. Marlon, Jackson's older brother, also joined the group, which grew into the Jackson 5. At the age of 13, Jackson launched a solo career in addition to his work with the Jackson 5, making the charts in 1971 with Got to Be There, from the album of the same name. After that, several albums were launched by MJ, including Jackson's 6th solo album. Thriller is the best-selling album in history, generating 7 top 10 hits. On a 1983 television special honoring Motown, Jackson performed his #1 hit, Billie Jean, and debuted his soon-to-be famous dance move, the moonwalk. His last album was Invincible, 2001. In August 1994, Jackson announced that he had married Lisa Marie Presley, daughter of rock icon Elvis Presley. The couple gave a joint television interview with Diane Sawyer, but the union proved to be short-lived. They divorced in 1996. Some thought that the marriage was a publicity ploy to restore Jackson's image after child molestation allegations. Later that same year, Jackson wed nurse Debbie Rowe. The couple divorced in 1999. Jackson and Rowe had 2 children through artificial insemination: son Michael Joseph Prince Jackson Jr., born in 1997, and daughter Paris Michael Catherine Jackson, born in 1998. When Rowe and Jackson divorced, Michael received full custody of their 2 children. Jackson would go on to have a 3rd child, Prince Michael Blanket Jackson II, with an unknown surrogate. After Jackson's death in June 2009, his children were placed in the care of their grandmother Catherine, as dictated in his will. Regarding their father's wishes, Prince, Paris, and Blanket were largely kept out of the limelight. They stepped up to the mic in 2009 to speak to fans at their father's funeral, and again in January 2010 to accept a posthumous Lifetime Achievement Award for their father at the Grammys. In July 2012, a judge temporarily suspended Katherine Jackson's guardianship of Prince, Paris, and Blanket after she was erroneously reported missing by a relative. During this time, T.J. Jackson, son of Tito, received temporary custody of the children. Katherine's disappearance came shortly after a dispute between her and several members of the Jackson clan, who raised questions about the validity of Jackson's will, pointed fingers at the Jackson matriarch, and called for the executors of his estate to resign. It was soon discovered that the elderly woman wasn't missing, but had simply taken a trip to Arizona. On August 2, 2012, a judge restored Katherine Jackson as the primary guardian of Prince, Paris, and Blanket, also approving a plan granting T.J. Jackson co-guardianship of the children. Jackson was badly injured while filming a commercial for PepsiCo in 1984, suffering burns to his face and scalp. At the top of his game creatively and commercially, Jackson had signed a $5 million endorsement deal with the soda giant the previous year. Jackson had surgery to repair his injuries and is believed to have begun experimenting with plastic surgery around this time. His face, especially his nose, would become dramatically altered in the coming years. Around the late 1980s, rumors began swirling that Jackson was lightening the color of his skin to appear whiter and sleeping in a special chamber to increase his lifespan. In 1993, Jackson agreed to a rare television interview with Oprah Winfrey to quell rumors. He explained that the change in his skin tone was the result of a skin condition known as vitiligo, and he opened up about the abuse he suffered from his father. Allegations of child molestation against Jackson first emerged in 1993, when a 13-year-old boy claimed that the music star had fondled him. Jackson was known to have sleepovers with boys at his Neverland Ranch, but this was the first public charge of wrongdoing. The police searched the ranch, but they found no evidence to support the claim. The following year, Jackson settled the case out of court with the boy's family. Other allegations emerged, but Jackson maintained his innocence. Jackson admitted that he continued to have children sleepovers at his ranch, even after the 1993 allegations, and that sometimes he slept with the children in his bed. "Why can't you share your bed? That's the most loving thing to do, to share your bed with someone," Jackson told Bashir. By the turn of the century, Jackson was increasingly becoming known for his eccentricities, which included wearing a surgical mask in public. In 2002, Jackson made headlines when he seemed confused and disoriented on stage at the MTV Video Music Awards. In 2002, he received enormous criticism for dangling his baby son, Blanket, over a balcony while greeting fans in Berlin, Germany. In a later interview, Jackson explained that, "We were waiting for thousands of fans down below, and they were chanting they wanted to see my child, so I was kind enough to let them see. I was doing something out of innocence." In the aftermath of his 2005 trial for child molestation, Jackson's reputation was effectively destroyed and his finances were in shambles. He soon found refuge in his friendship with Bahrain's Prince Salman bin Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, who helped the pop star pay his legal and utility bills, and invited him to his country as a personal guest. In Bahrain, the prince took care of the singer's expenses and built a recording studio for him. In return, Jackson allegedly promised to collaborate on a new album for Al Khalifa's record label, write an autobiography and create a stage play. The completed work never materialized, however, and Jackson soon faced a $7 million lawsuit from his friend for reneging on his promises. Around this same time, the largely reclusive Jackson announced that he would be performing a series of concerts as his final curtain call. Despite all of the allegations and stories of odd behavior, Jackson remained a figure of great interest, as demonstrated by the strong response to his concert plans. Set to appear at the O2 Arena in London, England, beginning July 8, 2009, Jackson saw all of the tickets to his "This Is It" tour sold out in only 4 hours. Sadly, Jackson would never get to experience the anticipated success of his comeback tour, as he died in June of that same year. Jackson died on June 25, 2009, at the age of 50 after suffering a cardiac arrest in his Los Angeles home. CPR attempts failed and he was rushed to the hospital, where he died later that morning. In February 2010, an official coroner's report revealed Jackson's cause of death was acute propofol intoxication, or a lethal overdose on a prescription drug cocktail including the sedatives midazolam, diazepam and lidocaine. Aided by his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, Jackson had been taking sedative drugs to help him sleep at night. Murray told police that he believed Jackson had developed a particular addiction to propofol, which Jackson referred to as his milk. Murray reportedly administered propofol by IV in the evenings, in 50 mg dosages, and was attempting to wean the pop star off the drug around the time of his death. A police investigation revealed that Murray was not licensed to prescribe most controlled drugs in the state of California. The steps he had taken to save Jackson also came under scrutiny, as evidence showed that the standard of care for administering propofol had not been met, and the recommended equipment for patient monitoring, precision dosing and resuscitation had not been present. As a result, Jackson's death was ruled a homicide. Murray was convicted of involuntary manslaughter on November 7, 2011, earning a maximum prison sentence of 4 years. Jackson's death resulted in an outpouring of public grief and sympathy. Memorials were erected around the world, including one at the arena where he was set to perform and another at his childhood home in Gary, Indiana. The Jackson family held a private funeral on September 3, 2009, at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, for immediate family members and 200 guests. Celebrity mourners included Jackson's ex-wife Presley and actress Elizabeth Taylor. A documentary of Jackson's preparations for his final tour, entitled This Is It, was released in October 2009. The film, which features a compilation of interviews, rehearsals and backstage footage of its star, made $23 million in its opening weekend and skyrocketed to No. 1 at the box office. This Is It would go on to make $261 million worldwide. Accusations of sexual abuse against Jackson resurfaced in early 2019 with the airing of Leaving Neverland at the Sundance Film Festival and then on HBO. The 4-hour documentary explores the recollections of two men who describe how the pop star lured them into his orbit as boys, gaining the trust of their parents, before coercing them into sexual activities in hotel rooms and at his Neverland ranch. The documentary drew harsh criticism from Jackson's supporters, who pointed out that both men had previously testified that no abuse ever happened. The Jackson estate, meanwhile, called the two accusers serial perjurers, and launched a $100 million lawsuit against HBO. Jackson's accuser also appeared via videotape and described how he had been given wine and molested. However, the jury found problems with his testimony. More than 130 people testified. Jackson was found not guilty of all charges on June 14, 2005.